Okay. This is Rita Carr, Chair of the Nantucket Historical Commission, calling to order our December 19th, 2025 meeting at 10:02 a.m. This meeting is being video and audio recorded, so please take care that everything you share or say is being recorded. In person, commissioners, please confirm that you can hear me. I'll start with a roll call. So in person, we have Betsy Tyler.
Present.
Barbara Halstead.
Present.
George Whatever.
Present.
Sarah McLean.
Present.
On Zoom, Abby DiMolina.
I'm here.
And Angus McLeod.
Good morning.
Thank you. Holly Backus, Town Preservation Planner, is here, and then we have a number of members of the public here who I will ask to identify yourself when you speak, but not at this point. All right, is there any public comment for items not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the staff update. Holly?
Yes, so I do have a couple of things. You all remembered we reviewed the Coast Guard's proposal for their replacement to their fueling system. This was last year, last March, and they recently reached out and said that there are some changes to their proposal, which we think are actually going to be better for the aesthetics aspect of the local and national historic district. In particular, I'll read you exactly what they said. The U.S. Coast Guard's Station Brant Point Fuel System Replacement Project you all had approved. The original design presented to NHC entailed removal of the existing underground piping for diesel fuel and installing it above ground on elevated timber guard posts. The final design has the piping being replaced underground, which is fantastic. We won't see it. There will be a 4x4x7 transition sump added below ground adjacent to the fuel dispenser. Considering this will improve the overall end state of the project aesthetics, and the U.S. Coast Guard hopes the NHC find the design change favorable. I would hope that the commission does find that change favorable, and they are okay with me relaying to them that the commission is fine with that via email instead of having to write a letter. So I would just, I guess, maybe just ask for the blessing for me to let them know that you all are okay with that.
Yeah, I think
That's suffice.
Yeah, sounds
Okay.
good. And this is something that we received less than 48 hours from
Yes.
when the meeting had already been posted, so we can add it to the agenda. But
And then I did want to just mention briefly, there's a couple of projects down the pipeline that our transportation manager has been working on over the last couple of years. You all know that the town's been looking at doing the Tom Nevers bike path, which is deeply needed. We definitely desperately need that. As well as there's another project for Wall-Winnet, which would be something that the federal government actually is advocating for and working on that. That one's going to be, in particular, going to be interesting because we all know that there are a lot of historic resources along Wall-Winnet Road, and that may determine what direction they go, how it's being done. But with that, we will be having a Section 1 review on that. They have contracted with POW, which is fantastic. So out of this work, whether it happens or not, we're going to get some updated surveys of much needed Wall-Winnet and areas that we don't have any at the beginning of Wall-Winnet and Pulpus. So I'll keep you all updated on that. And then I do have something that I will provide to you all for our next meeting. There has been a project notification form that was submitted with the Lover's Lane project. And what that basically they came back, there's no adverse effects from MHC. So really, there isn't anything for us to look at prospectively, but this is more for going into the Lover's Lane and the state forest component. It was more or less checks and balances, and I believe we had looked at something years ago. I mean, that whole project's been years in the making. So that's all I have for update.
okay, and then in terms of the Tom Nevers bike path, we had that sort of conceptual stage meeting with Remain.
Yes.
and some of their representatives. Do you
Yes.
think they'll wanna come back? Or-
Yes, more than likely that will be something that we'll be going through that and bring into the commission for review. I did mention to Mike, our transportation manager, that I would think this commission would be interested in the connection between where the path overlaps with the old railroad bed,
Mhm.
because we know the railroad bed is right there. There's a small location, and then we're talking about what we could have there, maybe some sort of nice plaque of some sort to indicate, I mean, I think there's a lot of history that people know about, but then they don't know about, and to acknowledge that. So that'll be down the pipe. And when that gets that point, I'll let you all know.
Any other questions? All right, so that brings us on the agenda. Thank you, Holly, to be our Nantucket Lights presentation about the dark sky compliant decorative streetlights proposed for downtown. So Gail Walker is here with Nantucket Lights, and then we have a couple of folks from Dark Sky International, or just one?
I'll mention his data.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Slideshow there.
Oh, it's up here.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. For the record, I'm Gail Walker. I'm the president and founder of Nantucket Lights, which is the all-volunteer citizen advocacy group that is exclusively dedicated to reducing light pollution on Nantucket to preserve our legacy of dark skies down at nighttime again. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you again about the decorative streetlights that are on Main Street and the requirements for the requirements under the new bylaw for making them dark sky friendly. This summer, as some of you will recall, at your April and May meetings, we discussed the possibility of adding some internal elements to the pilot dark sky picture on Lower Main Street to make it look more historic. And I'm basically here to update you on where things stand with that and to seek further feedback. James Slade, a representative of the manufacturer of the pilot dark sky streetlight who participated in the May meeting, has joined by Zoom today and would like to make a few comments after my prepared remarks, and she'll also be available to answer any questions you have for her. And also online is James Bigagliano, who's with Dark Sky International. He's in charge of their Dark Sky Approved program for light fixtures. Basically, they determine whether a fixture meets their strict criteria for being dark sky. And he's going to be available to answer any technical questions you have that I can answer. Because he's explained things to me that sometimes I don't do a good job of summarizing them up. Next slide, please. So here are the previous NHC meetings where dark sky streetlights have been discussed. The first two were before the passage of the new outdoor lighting bylaw in 2023, and the ones this summer were to discuss the new requirements and the options for making them compliant. Before I provide updates, I'm going to briefly go over what we discussed previously to refresh your memory, or for those new to the discussion to bring you up to speed. Next slide, please. Okay, so as background, this is the bylaw we're talking about. It was adopted at the 2023 annual town meeting, pursuant to a proposal, a citizen law proposal at that meeting. And it's now chapter 102 of the Nantucket Code and available online. And as a reminder, for the decorative streetlights that were already installed before the new rules became effective, the deadline for bringing all those into compliance is January 1st, 2021, which is why we're trying to figure out what to do about those to give the DPW time to install them and do it, buy any new fixtures if necessary. Next slide, please. So this slide is to remind you of the purpose of the new regulations, which is basically to address all the many types of harm caused by excessive or poorly designed outdoor lighting. And repeating what I said before, light pollution on Nantucket is making stars harder to see, adversely affecting the quality of life, reducing Nantucket's historic charm, creating unsafe glare, harming wildlife that needs a natural night to thrive, posing a risk to human health, and wasting energy. So lots of reasons to get light pollution under control. Next slide, please. So there's been lots written about the harm from light pollution and the global movement to do something about it. These are just a few of the articles that have been published in the last year. I've added from when I presented the slide before, the Sierra Club Magazine's article, which is worth reading, that came out in October of 2025, and so it's a sort of in-depth review of all the. Next slide, please. And this slide is to remind you of all the requirements for decorative street lights under the new bylaw. The most important for discussion here is the fully shielded requirement. So anything above 600 lumen output has to be fully shielded. And for street lights, that means can't have a bug rating exceeding B1, U0, G1, and the B stands for backlight, the U stands for uplighting, and the G stands for glare. So the difference between, the big difference between the options we're talking about is the uplighting. We're looking for a U0. Okay, next slide. Yes. This is just to remind you of the principles for responsible outdoor lighting that form the basis of all the requirements. These principles were adopted by Dark Sky International, which is the global organization tackling light pollution, and the Illuminating Engineering Society, which is a society of engineers that have to do with lighting. I won't read those. You've had the slide before, but we're trying to comply with all these principles. And the goal is not to eliminate all outdoor lighting, but rather just to have smarter, more thoughtful outdoor lighting. Next slide, please. This slide is a graphic that sort of captures all those principles. What's needed to minimize the harm from light pollution is shielding, using warm color temperature, using only light as bright as absolutely necessary, and only using light when absolutely necessary for timing. Next slide, please. So as we talked about in April and May meetings, decorative streetlights are built a little differently in order to meet the B1, U0, G1 requirement. The light source is completely hidden under the cap. There's a frosted panel directly under the light source to minimize glare, and then all vertical glass is removed. So in the case of the colonial style fixture you see here, there's 4 panes, there's no glass there, and for the Victorian style fixtures, there's no glow. And those are removed to eliminate any light going up and out. Next slide, please. So I show you here the case study that Jane went over, presented to you in May, and this is on the bridge in Cambridge. And I couldn't include all the pictures that she had in there or the video, but these are a little similar to the Victorian style fixtures on Main Street, so that's why we threaded those up to you. And this is another community that's a historic district, very conscious of preserving the historic look. So I just think it's something to consider, that they felt that the fixtures without globes were sufficiently historical for in their view. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the pilot dark sky street light that's in front of the Ralph Lauren store on Lower Main Street. This is how it looked when we met in May. Notice there's nothing in the insides, which was what the focus was on in May. Is like, did that look too odd? And the consensus was, I think that the commission felt something was needed in the middle. Next slide, please. So Spring City, the manufacturer of that pilot fixture, came up with 3 options to add some internal elements, or what some people refer to as guts. And this sort of presents them, and at the May meeting, it was option C that was, you decided on would be appropriate for best for Nantucket, and that's with this hurricane lamp and the insides. And the next slide, please. This is just a closer up view of that, and the picture on the right is an existing HPS fixture on Main Street that they were trying to make it look like. And of course, the one on the right has a globe. The dark sky version of it will not have a globe. But you can see the hurricane lamp is modeled under that hurricane lamp in the HPS fixture. Next slide, please. So here are pictures that I took. My amateur pictures, but these are pictures of this pilot fixture with the hurricane lamp added. That was added in November, on November 25th. So that's the big update that I have for you, and that we want to discuss now. So as you can see, even though there's no added light source, the light from the LED board at the top lights up the hurricane lamp just as they predicted it would. So it makes it look like there's light coming from the bottom, but there is none, which is kind of cool. And equally impressive, it doesn't increase the bug rating. Even though that it looks like there's light in the middle, it's not reflecting up and out to increase the bug rating. So let's see, next slide, please. Oh, so I had a few more comparison pictures to show you before we get to the discussion. So on the left is the pilot fixture with the hurricane lamp added. On the right, that compares it to the existing HPS fixture that is trying to measure. So you can see it's very similar in form now. It doesn't have the globe, but similar in form otherwise. And you can see by removing the outer globe, you're removing that big ball of light. And part of that light is what's causing the problem, being glare and upside. Next slide, please. Here it is compared to so it's just side by side comparison. So on the left, it's with the hurricane lamp added. On the right, it's just to see you can side by side comparison what it looked like without the hurricane lamp. And here is another side by side comparison. This time, I apologize for the photo. I'm not such a good photographer, but on the left side, you can see the one with the hurricane lamp. On the right, you can barely see it, but there's another dark sky fixture that's a pen globe version of it, and it doesn't have the hurricane lamp. And this is a side-by-side comparison that you can see in person. They're standing on the other side of the street, and I hope you've been able to do that because my pictures don't do it justice, really. It's kind of hard to capture, and well, especially for me. So anyway, I hope many of you got to see this in person because I think you need to see in person to really appreciate it. Next slide, please. So this brings us to really what the question is for you today. With the hurricane lamp added, does the pilot fixture now look sufficiently historic, or do you think it needs a globe to be appropriate for Main Street, even with the hurricane lamp added? And again, this is a version that would comply with the bylaw because the bug rating stays at B1, B0, G1, so it's the most dark sky film. Slide, please. But before we discuss that, I just wanted to say a few things that I would urge you to consider regarding the lack of a globe. First, adding a globe would not be as dark sky friendly. It would increase the bug rating to B1, U2, G1. And since that is more uplighting than allowed by the bylaw would have to be amended to make an exception for the street lights on Main Street. While Nantucket Lights would prefer the most dark sky friendly option, that is no globe, it would not oppose an amendment as long as it wouldn't disqualify Nantucket Lights from being certified as an international dark sky community, which is our ultimate goal. And as some of you will recall, I asked Dark Sky International for an exception that would allow globes on the Main Street fixtures. Another update for you is that request was denied. And so long story short, that means that a globeless fixture over 1,000 lumens would disqualify Nantucket for dark sky community certification. There's actually a typo in the second bullet there. So if fixtures are over 1,000 lumens and are not fully shielded, i.e. have globes, that would disqualify us from being certified as international dark sky community. And that's because the globe creates uplighting and outlighting, so that means they're not fully shielded. So previously DPW had thought 1,000 lumens would be sufficient, at least in the non-commercial part of Upper Main Street, which is why they asked me to ask Dark Sky International to make an exception. Now that the exception has been denied, they're reconsidering and may decide to do another pilot before making a decision. However, I would encourage you to go ahead and discuss whether you think the globeless fixture is sufficiently historic with the hurricane lamp, because then they could take that into account if they ultimately decide that 1,000 lumens or less isn't sufficient. And I just mentioned here that the Spring City fixture we've been looking at is available with a globe and with a 1,000 maximum lumen output. So you could have that same look with a globe, but it would have to be 1,000 lumens or less. And the one at the pilot one we've been talking about in front of the Ralph Lauren store is actually set at it's dim to about 800, maybe 900 lumen output. And personally, I think that seems sufficiently bright there, but there is the store right behind it. That ambient light is adding some light to the sidewalk. So really they need to test it on Upper Main Street where it's non-commercial, where the residential, where it becomes all residential. You don't have the store lighting, and so we'll just see if that's going to be sufficient. If they decide, if you guys decide that it looks sufficiently historic without the glow, as long as you have the hurricane lamp, they may very well decide not to explore that option further. But that's they are thinking along those lines. Next slide, please. So this is just to sort of sum up the compromise that we would be willing to accept if you decide that globes are absolutely needed to preserve the historic character of Main Street. On Main Street from Zero Main to the monument, you could have Victorian style fixture with the globe with a maximum output of 1,000 lumens. And then everywhere else, use the colonial style without the glass panes, so they're fully dark sky compliant. Now, interestingly, so as long as they're dark sky compliant, you don't have to limit the lumens. I mean, that's what this is all about. But I think both of these that you're seeing are set below 1,000 lumens because in some areas it just seems too bright, but it all depends on the location. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the same slide I showed, I think it was in April, just to remind you that we already have dark sky decorative streetlights on Nantucket that are privately owned. None of them are the Victorian style, these are all the colonial style. But these are installed by HOAs and businesses, and these are just a few I've seen around. The one in Sconset that I've highlighted on the left side was most like what the colonial style fixtures that the town owns that you find in well, almost all the ones in Sconset are that except the one, I think. And then in the downtown area, you can see these mixed in with the Victorian style on the streets near Main Street. Sometimes you'll see the two different pictures on one street beside each other. I think it would get better if they were sort of had a more uniform look. And then the colonial style is also what you'll see in Midtown in various places installed on the town. I can't remember the name of that street, but anyway, you'll see those a little bit in Midtown as well. Next slide, please. Again, about the glow versus no glow, I would just remind you of the results of the survey that was done by WPS students last fall. While not many participated in that survey due to the limited time it's open, of those who did, 63% responded said they would support the installation of the pilot dark sky figure without the globe to be more dark sky friendly on Main Street. And then 57% said mitigation of light pollution should be prioritized by the town in selecting new decorative streetlights. So I know you guys are the arbiter of what's historically appropriate, but that was sort of a small sample study of what the public thought. Okay, and then finally, with respect to globe versus no globe, some maintenance questions had come up before, so I just wanted to remind you of the answers to those. The lack of a globe wouldn't reduce the lifespan of the dark sky fixture according to the manufacturer. That's because the LED board is all contained up under the hood and is very tightly sealed, so all the mechanics of the fixture are protected from the elements. And then when that came up in the previous meeting, Drew Patno, the director of DPW, had said that he would be concerned about maintaining the globes themselves as long as the LED boards were protected, which is the manufacturer said they would. And with respect to the hurricane lamps, needing any kind of maintenance like cleaning or replacement, that would also be true of the outer globe. They get dirty and can break. So basically, I don't think maintenance is an issue that DPW is concerned about. Next slide. Okay, I think this is my last slide. These are just some other dark sky alternatives, dark sky fixtures that are alternatives offered by Spring City. Well, the preference seems to be stay with the Victorian style fixture on Main Street. It's just to remind you that there are other options if you want it to be as dark sky friendly as possible, but still don't like the look of the dark sky Victorian style fixture without a globe, even with the hurricane. And DPW thinks 2,000 units is sufficient. So next slide. Yeah, so that was my last one. That concludes my prepared remarks. And I guess we'll end by saying that I urge you to support the installation of the modified version of the globeless fixture on Main Street to be as dark sky friendly as possible. And of course, I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but before I do that, I'll turn it over to Jane Slade, who wanted to make a few comments. She's the representative of the manufacturer of the Spring City fixture.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. It's great to be here with you. And I just wanted to make a few supportive comments to Gail's presentation. One is that we were quite delighted and pleased to know that the hurricane lamps installation actually ends up capturing some of the uplight. So it's kind of surprising that that's the case, but actually by including the hurricane lamp, actually the uplight goes down. So that's a pretty interesting and nice added benefit. I will also tell you that right now that pilot fixture on Main Street is dimmed to 15 watts. The efficiency of that fixture is 80 lumens per watt, which gives you a total lumens right now of 1200 lumens. So I underscore that because I do think that the requirement of needing to be under 1,000 lumens so that you can get back the globes may be fairly limiting in terms of how to deliver the appropriate light levels according to the IES in terms of safety requirements, with 1,000 lumens throughout the island as your limiter. So I think that could be potentially a difficult issue just in terms of delivering the right amount of light. And for comparison, your standard light bulb that you put into your lamps at home is about 800 lumens. So that just to show you the difference right now, where our pilot is at 1,200 lumens. So it just might get a little tricky by having that as a limiter. And I will just also say that there might be also a consideration of using retrofits as a solution for the island and not actually fully replacing the fixtures. And that would be just something I would caution against because the fixtures themselves are quite they're not brand new. And so it might be an overinvestment of the housing. And that could create issues in terms of not having the highest updates with optics, which would help you get the light where you need it efficiently. And also technology, as in using controls that I've long believed controls are one of the most important aspects of dark sky technology because you can actually create adaptive schedules that bring back darkness throughout the 24-hour cycle. So that's when the lights are least being used, you can actually dim them accordingly and regain that type of darkness there. So yes, I just worry that retrofits would it's sort of like taking an old car and putting a new engine in, and it does pose a lot of complications and cost that might end up just being more cost and effort than it's worth than if you were just to replace the fixtures with the most up-to-date housings and technology. So I think those are all my comments for now. Yeah.
Rita, can I ask Jane to clarify something?
Sure.
Jane?
Yep.
I'm not sure if I misunderstood or something changed, but I thought the pilot fixture in front of Ralph Lauren was dimmed. And you told me the lumen output at the dim level is 76 lumens.
A lumen output at the tip, 76 lumens. The right now the fixture is a 60-watt fixture. It's dimmed to 15. The lumens per watt of that fixture is 80. So when we multiply 80 times 15, we get 1200 lumens. So I'm not sure what math we were doing.
I'm sorry.
Today. Sorry if it's
I don't know
different.
if this is the time to do it, but I could read you the email you sent to me. Maybe that would refresh your memory.
Sure.
It says the lumens per watt for the gross point fixture is 2200 Kelvin is 73. The Nantucket is a 60-watt model. So that would make the maximum 60 times 73 is 4,380 lumens. And I believe the current dimming level is 12 watts, which means the fixture is currently delivering 12 times 73 equals 876 lumens.
Okay, so I was going off 80 lumens per watt as of my notes this morning. So it could actually be 73 lumens per watt.
You told me back December of last year, and it kind of is important because all along I've been telling people that if the one in front of Ralph Lauren under 1000 seems sufficient, that the 1000 lumen cap may not be an issue. But now I'm hearing you say something different.
So right now I did check my lumens per watt this morning when I checked my notes. I'm sorry, it was 80. So 73 is probably more accurate because I had more time back when I was writing you that email. So sorry for that discrepancy, but I can confirm that the watts this morning, we did check with the controls Ubiquia platform, and that is at 15. So even 15 times 73 watts lumens per watt is still 1095 lumens. So we're still over 1000. So it's a good benchmark just to know what 1000 lumens looks and feels like.
Thank you.
And Polly, did you have?
I did. Thank you, Rita. Through you, I guess my question is, you mentioned about the denial for the exemption. And I think we would be remiss to inquire a little bit further on that. Did they give any reasons, justifications? Because, again, not to harp our own horn, but we are, a local and national historic district. And I think it's important for us to retain, that visual quality that we've had. That was part of our NHL update, as a matter of fact. I know our lights were included in that photo documentation that was done by, I think, Jack Boucher from the National Park Service back in the day.
Right. So to answer your question, no, they did not really give an explanation. I kind of had my hopes up based on everything I'd been told prior to the committee that makes these decisions meeting. And I just got back an answer, basically saying, no. I think, and based on, don't have anything I can read from you, but based on sort of back and forth, I think they just don't want to set a precedent for, allowing all the stuff lighting even in historic districts when they think, for example, Cambridge was willing to go without the globes. And there are ways to achieve it. So yeah, they just said no. And I think Nantucket is so in the news, like once if we got dark sky certification and it was clear that the exception was made for us, everybody in the world's gonna know it, and it's just gonna be a slippery slope for them. So, so I think it comes down to, can you live with the ones with the hurricane lamp without the globe? Or if you want the globe, is 1,000 lumens going to be sufficient? And if it's going to be sufficient, you could have both.
And in regard to the last one, whether 1,000 lumens would be sufficient, when they talk about them going further on Main Street, I could see a situation where we have the globes just for the lower part of Main Street, not a residential area. And when you're getting some backlighting from the businesses, I don't see why it has to, why you can't have the globes disappear as you get into that huge, long residential area, which is a huge piece of Main Street. Whereas the part that you most want to look really historic is right there in the center.
And that's an interesting compromise. That's an interesting possible compromise. Is Drew Patnode on the line?
And correct me if I'm wrong, Gail, but that's what that proposal essentially currently is. It's having
No.
globes up to the Pacific National Bank.
No, it was that we asked for an exception all the way into the monument because DPW thought that
Oh, to the monument.
you would
okay.
want the whole, because of the historic mansions and stuff there,
Yeah.
that you would want to continue that look up there. And what I thought was interesting about that is below Zero Main to the wharf is not, they didn't ask for an exception for that. So that's not technically, but it's true, it's good work. So kind of like that idea. You could have
Civic Club.
with globes on Main Street, the
Pacific
commercial
Bank.
area,
Right.
and then have no globes
Yeah.
upper Main and then on Stuart.
Sarah.
Question, I think to Jean Slate.
Jane.
Jane Slate. So you talked about not being able to retrofit, and I understand the actual, call it the lighting fixture itself, but can we put that lighting fixture onto our existing posts? Is that considered?
You mean the dark stuff, the Spring City fixture can be put on
Yeah.
the existing post?
Yep.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
In fact, the
That's
pilot
what's done.
Okay.
up front of La Flora, they'll just use the existing pole, just change the height.
Okay.
So I think I addressed this at a former meeting, only if a pole would only need to be changed if there's something wrong with the pole. And in Sconset, there's a few poles that are wood. For some reason, I don't know, they couldn't load for a metal one or something, so they're talking about possibly, getting, replacing them, but. Good. Oh, so that's not a cost, but in terms of retrofitting, James, Gagliano is the one who walked me through that, when I was trying to get up to speed on that yesterday. Because one option might be to retrofit the pen glow fixtures in another way, you probably mean, and that is to take out the HPS bulbs and put a LED bulb in it, and then, it's so an LED bulb is different from an LED board. Yeah, you guys, so, James, would you mind just speaking a little bit about that? What you told me yesterday about
Sure.
the problems we might run into with doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Is it possible to share my screen or?
Yep.
Okay.
Just bear with me for a second.
Yeah. I just want to put an image up on the screen. I think it will help people understand what I'm talking about.
Go for it.
Okay. Okay. So everyone can see this is the existing HID product that's out there.
There we go.
Okay. I guess one thing I want to point out is from just a quality of light standpoint, comparing this existing product versus changing out this this lamp with an LED lamp and putting like an opaque lens in here, that would be like the retrofit option. Both of those options compared to a dedicated LED product like the Spring City product, the big difference is that the Spring City product's going to have an optical design with LEDs that are directional, putting the light exactly where they need to go. And for one, you're going to get better functional light on the ground where you need it, and more efficiently. But then just from a aesthetic standpoint, visually, this existing light, it's historic and it's gorgeous and everything, but you do have a really bright light source, which is visible with your eye. When you're walking by, you're going to have this one spot in the product that's extremely bright and it's going to cause some glare. It's from some positions and stuff like that. With the dedicated LED product, you're going to have less of that. And with the retrofit situation where you basically have this same design and you put an LED lamp in here and maybe you put an opaque lens in to close it up or to kind of hide the lamp a little bit because the LED lamps are not very attractive typically. Um, it's not going to be very efficient, and I would be little bit concerned that the opaque lens very close to the LED lamp light source, that opaque lens is going to be actually has potential for being very glary as well because you have the source very close to the, opaque lens. So just from an aesthetic standpoint, there's some, you know, things to be cautious about. And then I would also just say sometimes people will see an option for a retrofit and you'll look at like the price of just the lamp and it seems pretty enticing. It's like, oh, well, it's the quality's not as good, but it's like $200 versus, like $600 or $700. But it's important to make sure you think about all of the other aspects. I agree with all the things that Jane said about putting a new engine in an old car. You still have the vintage of the other parts is still going to be older. So, um, that's an important piece. And then just from a retrofit standpoint, from a labor standpoint, that's definitely something considered. To take the fixture head completely off and put a new fixture on is very easy. They just have to disconnect the wiring, pull it off, reconnect wiring on a new one and put it on, and you're done. So it's quick. You have a brand new fixture with the best quality of light on the ground and the best aesthetics, minimizing the glare compared to the other options, versus doing a retrofit where you have to basically make some modifications to the fixture. One, there's a wiring modification. You have to bypass the ballast, which drives the lamp. So there's some wiring that has to happen, and then there's going to be just the mechanical pieces of putting the different lamp in, adding an opaque lens. All of that labor really adds up quick, and then is the quality still going to be good after all of that work? Is it worth it? So just stuff to consider.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like these questions about retrofitting versus like going for something new is probably outside of our
Yes.
scope as the NHG. Like this is something I think the DPW really needs to consider. But it is helpful to
So I
know.
think the point is just to dip our toes in that way, you can see sort of the complications maybe of if you try to restrict it to 1,000 lumens on the retrofit. So that's all. So, but if you could just if you could just focus on whether the aesthetics of what it looks like, that would be good.
Yes, so especially, sorry, could we maybe go back to sharing the image of the
With the hurricane.
the updated picture with the hurricane lamp, Holly? That would be great. And commissioners, any thoughts, comments? Betsy?
Yeah, I took a look at it last night and I did not like the way that looked.
Mm.
It looked like a white bowling pin sitting inside. I just didn't look as sporty to me at all. Not happy with that. And the one with nothing in it seems lacking, I like the colonial look better for the whole town.
Hmm.
Really?
Yeah,
The everywhere else ones,
yeah.
they look like they have nothing in them at all.
I have a
having something in
question.
there would improve them. I don't like them for everywhere else. There's literally nothing in there, right? Just an empty-
Yeah.
Probably the one with
The elongated
The
one
one
on
from
Main
Maple
Street
Street,
makes
look,
it more.
there was one from Maple Street that
Which
looked
one?
more
The
appealing.
one with the, Wisconsin one.
Spot number 20.
Yeah.
There was one you showed several of the out of town one. The one from Maple Lane, it looked like there's something in there. It looked more attractive. Am I seeing it wrong?
I think, if you go to, sorry, I think it's the last slide, which showed all the options. They chose the, Jane, can you help me? Which one? They brought, I think they bought those from the city. Jane, do you remember which?
So the Clearwater is the colonial version that they,
Water.
yeah.
They chose that one, in Maple Lane.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And somebody at one of the meetings said, well, maybe leave that next one, the Augusta. Is a little fancier, maybe we could do something like that on Main Street to make it distinct, different.
For reference, we actually have installed the Augusta Dark Sky on Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah, so that's a no. That's a no. Thank you for that.
Nantucket people say anything else but that.
Sorry. They're more Victorian anyway. I mean,
I have a
Yes,
question.
Barbara.
I feel,
Oh,
I feel differently than Betsy did. I felt that hurricane chimney added a great deal. Thought it made it warmer, added some charm. And the fact that it gave the illusion that the light was coming from the bottom, as it would have in a Victorian gas fixture, made it more historic. And I would miss the globes, but I think it's important that we really set a good example both for the rest of the island and every other historic area. And the alternative to having the globes partway up Main Street, I think is a good solution.
okay.
I like the chimney a lot, actually, and I think we need to stick with Victoria, because I think that's what would have been at the
Yes.
time, you can help me with this, but at the time when Nantucket was at its height and really making a lot of money, they would have upgraded to the more fancy decorative historic section.
Yes.
Historically, I think we didn't do any lighting at all, did we? Because we were too cheap.
Right.
So-
The glow
Way over.
is even
Right.
from after, like, when, when you're talking about like Nantucket's like most wealthy, like whaling period in like the 1830s, like the Victorian style would be after that.
Right.
Yeah. Which I think almost tilts me a little bit more towards the more colonial style throughout. But
I also think that when the light is off, and we're looking at the fixture during the day, and you're not seeing the top of it at night at all. During the day, the contrast of the white and the black and
This
the
slide that shows that how we talk about. The during the day.
I like that better than just wall black.
okay, thank you, Barbara.
Yeah, I would second what Barbara said. I think the hurricane lamp really adds something to it.
Okay, anybody else?
Thanks.
Sarah?
I would agree with both of them, and I would say that I would be more apt to do this, and forgo trying to get the exception even part of the way up Main Street if we run into the issue with DPW and they don't feel that we've got enough lumens with the globe.
Okay. Abby. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was wrangling child. I agree with George and Barbara. I really like the way the hurricane lamp looks. And so I just wanted to kind of add my support to what they both said. I just thought it looked really nice. So just my 2 cents.
Great, thank you, Abby. Angus, did you have anything?
I had a question and then I'd like to comment. On page 12 of the packet, it shows the privately owned fixtures, and I just had a question about the lumens in those. Are those more or less than 1,000?
Go back to the lunch on Wisconsin.
It's the one with the 6 different light
Hold
conditions.
on, I think it's this direction.
That.
That one.
That one, yeah.
I did not bring my file on the Sconset one. I think it is over 1,000 lumens. Jane might know because they provided that one.
I am checking right now with my partner to see if we can get the light levels because I believe that has a Ubiquia control. So let me see if I can get that for you.
It does. And whatever the initial lumen output is, it is dimmed almost 50% because they found it too bright.
Okay, and could I just ask a clarifying question though? If it's a dark sky compliant fixture with no globe, then the lumen isn't of concern, right? Then we can be over 1,000.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that gives you the flexibility of dimming it generally, but if you need it to be brighter for road work or some reason, you could brighten. So it doesn't limit you. And it also, you could get one fixture throughout and then dim as needed rather than ordering different fixtures at different lumen levels.
Thank you for that, Gail. And so I so appreciate Spring City doing this experiment uh, with the fixture at Lower Main Street, the Grosse Point fixture. The added globe, really checked all the boxes for me for having it fill that void that was before without the globe. And the way it reflects, I'm as happy as I could be with it. There was one thing that sort of stood out was the bright gold. I don't know if that is uh, that might be something to check about whether that wants to be gold or black. I think that the photographs were strategically taken so that the reflection of the light sort of creates the idea of a globe. And so, if you took a picture from a 90-degree angle to that, how does that really read as a globe? But for me, uh, I I think that this is an excellent option and design. The light, and I agree with George, Barbara, and Abby about the globe on Main Street between, just lower Main Street from the Pacific towards the water of doing 1,000 lumens or less with a globe, but everywhere else doing the globeless. I think it's a very successful design, and I appreciate Spring City for bringing that forward. And Gail, as usual, thank you for your thorough coverage of this and giving us all the information. So thank you for that.
Can I say something? Yes, thank you. That was, what, Angus said there, but one reminded me, there are other design choices you could weigh in on. The color of the arms, those don't have to be gold. I think, I don't know who made that decision one way, but I think some on Main Street are gold and some aren't. And then the top part could be, see how it's white? The little hat is white. That could also be black, I believe. But for whatever reason, some on Main Street have white, so they modeled after white. Am I right about that, Jane?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that
Can
question?
the top part, the dome at the top be black? And can the arms be black if they wanted it?
Absolutely. That's not a problem.
Those are those little design choices that common on specify.
Yes,
I
Barbara.
think that historically that was a Victorian fixture, it would have been a white glass globe at the top in order to
The dome, let's call it the dome.
The dome.
Yeah.
You think
So I think the dome should stay white, and I like the contrast, as I said before, of the white to the eye. The arms have bothered me from the beginning. They look a little bit too, the word that I heard used when I was listening to the other ones was spindly. They don't look like they're really carrying that weight adequately. And if they were black and didn't stand out, and that would give them a little bit more visual weight, and that would be better.
Jane?
I just want to say that the wattage right now for the sconset fixture is at 28 to 30 watts. So rough math, I don't have the lumens per watt of that fixture offhand, but if we went really low at 60 lumens per watt, then that's 1,680 lumens currently coming out of that fixture.
Thank you for that, Jane.
You're
But
welcome.
the other design question, Jane, could
Yeah.
the arms be made, not a spindly? Could those little arms be made in a different way to make them look more substantial?
Absolutely. That can, for the gross point you're saying, the gold
Yeah.
arms, yes,
Yeah.
those could be those could be engineered to make them feel more visually substantial for sure.
Great, thanks. So I'm more in the agreeing with Betsy that I think for me, I think the hurricane lamp is a great improvement, but it's still, I don't know if it was like the opacity of it, that it looked like just like so solid in a way that I reacted negatively to, and I would love to see if I think still having the globes at least in, that part of Main Street between the Pacific Club and the Pacific Bank, I think that would go a long way. And if they're at that, under 1,000 lumens and still considered to be compliant, that would be my personal preference. But my overall feeling, I know there's still the QR codes on the two pilot fixtures that, encouraging people to give their feedback. But I think like we're a commission of 7 people, I would love to see more public outreach
Yes.
and more public input to
Agreed.
really it's the quiet time of year right now. Like sure, a lot of people were here for Stroll, but like I wish I had known that this was installed during Stroll, and like I would have been out there trying to be like, hey, like, what do you think of this?
Well, the QR code, that survey is closed and.
Okay, so if you scan it, it doesn't
It doesn't
actually
actually
go
work,
anywhere.
right.
Okay.
And so that's up to. the
Yeah,
town
I think we
communications
really
team.
should prioritize getting more public input at this point, especially, the deadline of 2029, like it's obviously getting closer, but like it's still 3 years. Like I think we have an opportunity to just get more feedback and build more consensus, and I think that would be just more successful
Yes.
in general if more people like know that this is going on and his papers are being considered.
To Rita's point, I have a question about the opaqueness of that hurricane globe. Can it be a little bit more translucent? Is that going to change things dramatically with the uplight and reflection?
Yes, that's Jane. Could you speak to that perhaps?
Yeah, sure. I could see if Spring City has a different material selection for that potential glass. But I will say that I found it very interesting that the glass right now, as it's incorporated into the fixtures, actually capturing some of the uplight. So it's going into the globe and it's not going back out up. So it's actually serving quite an interesting dark sky tool in the fixture. So I thought that was actually very pleasing to see that if we remove the glass, the complaint was that the fixtures look headless because light with nothing to fall on, actually you don't see light. You don't see light in space because it's going through a vacuum. So that headlessness is because there was nothing there without the globe. So we put this material there and suddenly you're getting light, but it's actually being captured. So I thought it was a very beautiful solution. It's possible that we could switch it out for something like a little bit more delicate. And I can certainly talk to Spring City about that.
Thank you.
Lauren had her hand raised.
Yes, Lauren, I saw your hand raised. Would you still like to comment?
Yes, just very briefly. First, thank you to Jane and all the presenters. This is really informational, and I'm here to support the DPW, but next steps are in their court. The one point I wanted to clarify is that the QR codes that are on the polls now were launched by the town last November, and they link to a town survey, which I believe is still technically active, although difficult to find. But we did not receive one survey. So I would not dispute that more outreach would be needed. We can possibly revisit updating the questions if there's interest. But I think, you know, we are interested as a town to explore piloting options and to get as much feedback as possible.
Agreed.
Great. Thank you, Lauren. Mary Bergman? Thanks.
Hi, Mary Bergman with the Nantucket Preservation Trust. I think that the options presented today seem to be moving in a good direction. There's a lot of discussion about what would the lights have looked like when they were first installed, and I think it doesn't really matter because it is the lights that exist now that are the ones that have occupied people's memory so long.
Yes.
And when people come to Nantucket, they are coming here because there is a feeling that it doesn't change. I think a lot more needs to be done to engage everyone coming to the island and I would like to know what do those Upper Main Street homeowners think, what outreach has been done to like the town, various town, civic associations and various town neighborhood groups. I just thinking about the ways in which this island reacts to change. Getting as many people on board before the change happens is really critical. And it seems like it would make sense to have somebody down there at a table, like, I can't remember her name, who's in front of Condon and Pullman with the whale lady. On July 4th, on Stroll. This is, you know, I'm completely in favor of doing things that are gonna make the island more sustainable, move away from traditional lighting, things like that. But it's again, bringing all those people along with you. And it's 6 days before Christmas. And I'm a little disappointed that the survey happened last year in November when there was nobody here. And I know in May, I said the same thing that I'm saying now. So I would love to see more outreach done in the high season. You just don't want people to come and complain that the thing, you know, and they will. They will. It's like, this is a great idea and these are great products and but you just have to have those people. Because they're gonna call me. They will, they call in me, you know, people called and complained when the monument went back up and was painted too high gloss of paint, so. That's all. And I think too, like if there's anything that Preservation Trust can do to help, if there's any, it seems like culture and tourism.
Yeah.
Could be involved, like bring them in,
You need it in the chamber too.
and the chamber, I would think that they would want to, all those downtown events, it's the business owners too, to bring them in and just so they know it's.
Agreed.
Yeah, thank you.
Sarah.
Rita?
Oh,
Sorry, Angus, we'll go to you next, Sarah.
so through you, since most of us seem to get our news from the print, wouldn't it kind of make sense to have some sort of, you know, QR code query, Q&A, you know, something like that on the current that people all over who are on off island or off island, but pretty much anyone who has a connection to the island is seeing it on a regular basis. And certainly we get a lot of information there. So all these things were discussed, when the WPI students were doing it. And so first of all, it's not up to me. And the town has to conduct the survey. I mean, we could do a survey, but I think they didn't necessarily place value on that. But there was a concern that they didn't want people participating in a survey without having seen it posted because it was so hard to show. And it looks different at different angles, as Angus said, it looks different during the day, it looks different in dusk, it looks different. So this is the challenge of doing so putting it through the current and just having the QR code out there. Well, because people would be able to participate without having to see. So the idea of putting on a poll was,
you would have to come about a poll.
So maybe if it's not the survey on the current, it's more of an informational piece of next time you're on the island and next time you're downtown, you know, this is what we're considering. These are the thought, you know, this is the thought process behind it. And then you've got different stakeholders behind that as well. So it's the chamber, it's the preservation commission, it's, you know, a bunch of different things that are sort of driving that. And you're right, people should see it in person, but if they don't even know, you know, I would not have known that this existed without this.
Since the WPI survey was advertised through all the media, but again, they can only have it open a few weeks because of just their schedule. And then the town, I don't know, there were just logistical challenges to continuing that, but you know, I'll talk to DPW and Laura and the communications office to see if they can do a survey.
If I may, Madam Chair.
Could I get
Yeah,
Angus first,
absolutely.
because Angus, did you?
Oh, I just wanted to apologize. I have to leave the meeting, but I totally agree with canvassing the residents and visitors, and I think Sarah's idea of the current is great, and all of Mary's ideas about you know, the chamber and businesses along Main Street, and you know, as many people as we can get involved with. But I feel like we've got really great things to bring to that survey for people's opinion. And with that, I'm going to sign off. But thank you so much, everyone.
Hey, Angus.
Thanks, Angus.
I think one of the challenges of a survey is providing the information in a succinct way. I mean, I've been before the email, this is the third time, and you know, so many questions come up. And I went out, I took a friend, well, what do you think? Well, I don't like the arms. I mean, that's what her eyes went to. It's like, well, that's not, so we have to somehow in the survey say, all those other things can be adjusted, but I guess I'm asking you, would you want them to weigh in on the arms, the color of the dome? You know, other design elements other than just the lack of a glow. I need to know.
So that, for you, my experience with giving people too many options is that no one will make a decision or they get overwhelmed with the options. And so I feel as though we've done so much work to be able to give them 3 options. These are what they are, obviously dealing with DPW and figuring out what they can handle. Or maybe it's 4 options, whatever it is, but giving them a finite number of things. So it's not sort of like a smorgasbord of, oh, I really don't like the color of this little itty bitty thing, because then I think that you just have to narrow it down and say, after all of our conversations and going through all of the options, these are what we feel are the best, and then present them to them. And maybe it's this one and that one, or this one, and this one. But something that works for the DPW, that works for the dark sky certification, and then works, you know, with what we sort of feel make the most sense, and then giving them those options. That would be my recommendation.
So I think, go back to Drew, I think he's not online, to see what he thinks of George's suggestion, about whether you guys seem to like, where you could just have the 1,000 lumen limitation on the core of Main Street, so that you could have globes there. Because if you can keep it pretty close to what you have now, that's kind of the status. And so if he thinks that, so if he goes for that, maybe he's willing just to go with globes on Main Street, which is what your main concern is, right? Globe look, yeah.
I think if the fixture had glowed, then the chimney would be less, it'd be more incorporated into the whole thing,
Right.
not just saying that like.
Okay, so. The suggestion on the table is to have fixtures, 1,000 on the left, with globes, just on Main Street from Zero Main to the bank. And everywhere else we go fully dark skies and fine.
And is there a chimney on the heart of downtown? Chimney inside the globe?
Right.
Yeah, that's my preference, if we can work it out and have enough light.
Paul.
Thank you. Through you to Gail, I was curious and I know I completely understand it as a planner that, you know, we want to have the town lead by example. But at the same time, I'm curious on what the effort is to look at other parts of the island that are actually more an issue when it comes to light pollution than just downtown core. I feel like changes to our downtown core are hard. Again, I think going back to what Mary said, people come to Nantucket, they expect no change, really and truly. And I did want to emphasize that the Victorian, light fixtures that we see downtown have been there for a long time. That is part of our NHL, documentation. I think that's important to emphasize. So looking at, I live out in Pulpus and I drive by a particular location that's residential, that the light pollution, even this time of year, is just horrendous. So my whole thing is I'd like to see more effort looking at residential areas outside the core, that are not necessarily within the historic district. But as far as the proposal before, I as staff, I know that we're just an advisory to the town, but I appreciate the efforts that putting in the hurricane. And I would agree with having some type of an exemption for Main Street. I think that's important. Honestly, I would even be more in favor of having the proposal one from Penglobe being further down up until the monument, the Civil War monument, and not at Pacific Club, as you mentioned, but that's just me. I think carrying that look through is important.
With the globe.
With the globe, yeah, absolutely. Because really and truly, the colonial component, yes, it's scattered throughout the island, and I think you've done a good job of capturing where they are, but a lot of them are people's private properties. They're not really town centric. I mean, I know there's a couple here and there, but a lot of these are infill. And I think they're a newer aspect, and having them outside of the core 1955 old historic district is, I think, more appropriate than replacing the existing Victorian. So that's just my 2 cents.
If I could respond?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So working backwards, is it NHL designation?
Yes.
National Historic Landmark designation?
Yes.
For sure. I mean, I did contact the National Park Service and they said that the streetlights did not factor into the designation and changing them would not jeopardize the designation. And I got that in writing, and then, as you remember, you contacted your contact too. So, but I get your point. You want it to look the way it does now. Now what's the plan for everybody else? So we are working, we're a very small group, all volunteer, limited funds. We are trying our best to convince everybody to do the upgrades. We have been focusing this year on town-owned lighting because, again, what I've said before, if the town doesn't comply, other people are going to say, why should I comply? And on the town-owned lighting, we had a consultant in the summer who inventoried and assessed all the outdoor fixtures owned by the town. Turned out to be 1,400 of them. And they now have a roadmap for bringing those into compliance, including that includes all the lighting at the airport, at the schools, at the dump where it's bad. So, we're trying to work all the fronts. The reason we started focusing, the reason I keep coming back to the other streetlights is because that has the historic aspect, and these fixtures have to be ordered. They're more expensive. Installation is harder, so you need a little more lead time. But we're working on all fronts, and I certainly hope that we start seeing some changes before the actual installation on Main Street at Dark Fest at their streetlights, if that's the way to go. But it'll be, so if you want, let's see, going back to the complications and the time frame, if you want the globes on Main Street 1,000 lumens or less, that still requires an amendment to the bylaw, so that wouldn't happen in 2026, that wouldn't be until 2027. So maybe the Dutch sky ducting street lights might get ordered in 2027, maybe installed 2028. That's going to be, it's a process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they've got to fix some wiring for some of them. But when it comes to streetlights, I think wish Drew was here to speak, but, there's so many that are failing now, and so they're getting calls to replace them. Well, if you can't repair the existing ones, or repairing the existing ones is not cost effective, they cannot replace them, they're holding off, so streetlights are going out, but there's some in months that they're out that people would very much like to be on. And in one case, Wisconsin one went out and people complained so much they put it out really horrible. So now people are complaining about that. So I think they want to come up with plan for the streetlights and just get them ordered and have them available for them. And we've got now some streets and sidewalks that aren't lit because they've held off because, so it's streetlights are a challenge.
Yeah, I just wanted to say the reason I talked about capping it at City National Bank is because if the reducing to below 1,000 lumens reduces the light output, and we were looking that the stores also contribute to lighting the sidewalks in the business district, but once you go beyond the bank, you're totally dependent on the streetlights.
Yeah.
The houses are not gonna be lighting up the sidewalk for you. So that's why I threw that out.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
And that's why Drew was reluctant to just put under 1,000 of them. So when we asked for the exception, so it's complicated, but he wanted to have the flexibility of putting over 1,000 lumens in other places. So that's why we asked that for dark sky make an exception on parts of the street, and they just said no. And so to me, that matters to us. And so as a group, as a grassroots group, we would really be lobbying against anything that would preclude us from getting international dark sky community certification.
Thank you, Mary.
Hi, Mary Bergman, Nantucket Preservation Trust. I'll echo the sentiments which the DPW is here because it does feel like that's a major factor. But also give them some slack because I think it's been below 64 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
Maybe Drew's on that. Because I think it's hard to make these decisions or to listen to this conversation without also thinking about the very poor condition of the sidewalk around our town, especially Upper Main Street. So to think about anything that's going to potentially reduce the available light is a challenge. And again, that's not the fault of any of the dark sky initiatives.
It's just
It'd be nice to know if we had a plan for like improving the sidewalks too, which is Gail's group's problem. But I do wonder, because I hear it repeated, what happens if we get this designation? Like, what if we made the changes because it was the right thing to do and we didn't get the designation? Is there any, because like to lose, is it just going to be another certificate that I don't know. So that's my question for you, Madam Chair, to Gail is what does it really mean to get this dark sky, international dark sky designation?
So are you asking, is there a way to get this? I'm sure it's never gonna get this.
No, I'm asking,
Change.
like, are we chasing after like a piece of paper that's just gonna sit somewhere? Or could we just make changes that would suit Nantucket and would improve would decrease the light pollution? I don't understand, I guess, like
What's the incentive?
what happens once you become a dark sky king, right?
So what I explain is just that is like the roadmap for being the most dark sky family and to be the most environmentally sensitive. So it's just certainly very strict criteria. So if you conclude you've met that, that means you've really achieved something really great. And you get the help of Dark Sky International to help you keep that in terms of advice and technical advice from veterans.
Okay.
And of course, you're interested in tourism, you get huge international recognition for doing.
For the record, I'm not that interested in too many.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you said something about. You want the tourists to still come, but
well, I mean, that is our major economic engine, but I think that's just the question is, are we gonna get to a point where there's too many things? Too many opposing,
Are, sorry,
Thank
like,
you,
are
yeah.
we giving up too much in trying to see this designation? And maybe we could do 95% of the things and maybe we don't get the actual recognition, but like we've still done a lot
Like,
to protect our community while, and improve the quality of the night skies or protect our dark night skies because, I was admiring the Milky Way the other night, like, from my apartment deck.
just like a lead certification, like
Yeah.
there's sometimes getting a lead certification won't necessarily be the right thing, but you've done everything almost up to that point. I don't know. And it still provides the benefit that you're looking for, just an idea.
I personally think that it's important that we have the certification. I think something we've talked about at the Preservation Trust often is have Nantucket be an example and be one of their outreach people, organizations or communities for other historic organizations. And I think setting the example that we can have historic fixtures that are appropriate, historically appropriate, and also meet all this criteria would be a very important thing to set forth for other historic communities.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because people in New England, Massachusetts and beyond are looking to us now because of our bylaw and asking for advice. And Chatham contacted me like, oh, we want to be dark sky compliant too. And I said, thank you very much because we see your lights. Your lights are affecting our dark sky. So again, this saying Nantucket is so, I don't know, if Nantucket does something that makes the news, it will be a leader for New England and really the whole country. We would be the second dark sky community on the East Coast and the first in New England if we got the certification. So it means a lot, and Nantucket, it needs. So I talked about the town leading by example, but Nantucket can lead by example for the whole region and the whole country. And Boston might take notice and do something about their luck. So I don't, I know you want to, change is hard, but honestly, has anybody complained to you about even the pilot fixture? We now have 2 fixtures on Main Street that don't have globes. Has anybody even noticed? I suspect they don't notice. And if you point it out to them, they might, but like, I watch people walking along, they don't go like, oh my gosh, that looks horrible. And so sometimes you just do the right thing and you lead people to it. And the bylaw did pass with these requirements by a very large margin. And I did reach out to all the neighborhood associations and other groups. Now, of course, at the time, they couldn't see it in person. It doesn't make a difference. It was abstract. But people in general are really on board with being dark sky compliant and getting the certification. That's how I explained all the strict requirements involved. So, you evolve. And like, to me, that picture on the left, that looks pretty historic. It looks pretty close to what we have. So. Thank you. Helen.
Thank you. I have a question for Gail. I'm curious because when we look at history, we have Ryan Mitchell Association, and you have folks that come from all over the world, obviously, to see our dark skies. So I'm curious on the support that you may have or may not have received from them. Have you?
They are our key partner. They are.
I figured.
They are. They do our dark sky. Our sky quality. It's called sky quality monitoring program with us. They have a dark sky exhibit now as part of their natural history exhibit. I mean, I would say, Joanna Birch was here, she would say, like, they're so glad we're pursuing this because it protects what they value the most, and they don't have the resources and expertise to tackle all the light. So they're very supportive. I haven't asked them specifically about the streetlight issues.
I think, if I may, I think it's good point to have for folks to know that they're a partner with this initiative, because I think, at least from my perspective, when we were reviewing the very controversial wind farms off our coast, emphasizing that, Mariah Mitchell and our dark sky is very, very important. And you know, exactly what we see off the coast is a different story, but you know, we want to protect our NHL as much as possible. And it's not just what we see here on the ground, it's also what we see around the coast too. So to the point of seeing our neighbors across the sound, having their dark. So I totally get it. It's from a, I think, perspective of what are people used to when they come to Nantucket, what they see and all that kind of stuff. So appreciate the time.
And Sarah, just a comment to your point in terms of, and I believe one of your other presentations, there are what, 5 or 6 different types of fixtures throughout downtown? I mean, there's a number of different ones. It's like this was sort of the one that we chose, or you guys chose to mimic, but there are multiple other ones.
There
And
were
so-
these 3,
Right, so to your point, you know, if we're giving people different options, or if it's just being done, they're probably not gonna notice so much, other than now they're the same. Versus you've got one here that's different than that one over there, than that one's over there, or it's missing.
So I've been studying these as well until I went out. When the feedback came back, that you needed to know elements, I went around looking at like everything was going. So I was surprised that there were 3 different types I hadn't even really noticed. And some of them look way more modern than the hurricane lamp, and yet those got installed without, I suspect, anybody consulted you guys, without putting much thought into it, and nobody noticed. So I almost feel like if DPW just, or the town, just went ahead with this, so this is what the community voted for, this is what we're doing. I think people would go along with it. You think there'll be backlash? It's more optimistic. I don't think there will be, because I think that looks really very close to me.
One more question. If the DPW were to go ahead, for instance, if they chose this one and, you know, did what we suggested in terms of the globes in town and did something differently, would it still have to go back for approval, or would they be able to order and then, so like shorten that window of potential install that you were talking about?
Well, they could do it in stages.
Well, but you, I want you to comment about if we do X,
Oh.
we have to go back to maybe town meeting, yes.
Oh, so, yes, even to do the globes on Main Street, because that produces uploading in violation of the budget fund by law, you would have to get a amendment for that block, for that long block. But you could take care of all the others before then.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Can I just say one thing? Which is,
Yes, thank you.
I just want to say that I do see enormous benefit to Nantucket becoming dark sky accredited. I have passed the LEED exam. I understand there are certifications that feel really fluffy, and LEED is certainly sometimes the case. However, Nantucket being accredited for dark sky, one would make you a leader in New England, because I don't believe there are any other dark sky places in New England. Moreover, International Dark Sky Association, they renamed to darksky.org. They are so proud of all of their dark sky places. So they would be continually showcasing that Nantucket was dark sky. I also always say to communities, don't look to your neighbors. We're not there yet. Be the leader in dark sky. And then lastly, light pollution is so easily uncontained, because light fixtures can be so easily purchased and installed, that not having the accreditation would maybe lead to light creeping up on the island. And so having the accreditation would sort of take away from the nebulousness of, you know, some of trying to maintain bylaws without it. So I think it would actually be an enormous benefit, and that this particular accreditation is worth it. So that's just what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
can I just say this is a related thought, but with this idea that there might be backlash. If you went with a dark sky fixture without the globe, and there was backlash, you could add the globe to it. But still would have to be 1,000 units. What do you think on Main Street? That's okay. I'm trying to think this through, but So if you did this and just went without globes as a start, to see how it goes, but having a 1,000 lumens less, and then people reacted badly, you can add the globes later. And still, you know, be where you were, what you proposed. Does that make sense? And so you could start out just seeing how to feel about that block being without a globe. And preserve the option of adding globe later by restricting the lumen output to 1,000. You follow me? And this is a slowly forward one. And then we go back to town meeting. But we still have to go back to town meeting for the 1,000. No, I'm sorry. I get some mixed up. Yeah, you go with the 1,000 lumen output max without the globe. You don't have to go back to town meeting. Go ahead and stall. If there's backlash, that's survey or whatever, come back and do the globes after going to town meeting to do it. And yes, sorry, that's a new thought.
Yeah, I mean, at this, I guess at this point, like, what are you looking for from us? Like,
Guidance from DPW for the town. And I mean, if you take a vote or something, like I heard almost everybody's, I think it was Betsy and Rita didn't like the hurricane, but everybody else did. So to me, if there was a formal vote saying that, that would tell them something. And then if you said, okay, but our preference is, even with the hurricane, that option was to have globes, and we would like you to somehow put it on the formal record what your position is as a commission. I think it would help move this forward a little bit, because right now it's still just this discussion. And we can of course go back and watch the recording and everything, but it'd be nice to have some sort of official action that they could refer to and how things would like. Somebody would have to make a motion.
I won't make a motion. So I'd make a motion proposing that we endorse the hurricane lamps on Main Street and on the section of Main Street from the Pacific Club to the Pacific Bank, that we recommend the hurricane lamps with a globe, keeping the lumen under 1,000 so that we're not in violation of the dark skies.
all right, is there a second? I'll second. All right, so motion made by George, seconded by Sarah. We will do a roll call vote. George,
Aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
Betsy,
Aye.
we lost Angus. Abby,
Aye.
and I'm a nay, so that is 4 in favor, 2 opposed.
Who's the other opposed? I didn't hear.
Betsy.
Okay, so George, Abby, Rita, and Betsy are opposed, so Sarah and Barbara are aye.
Yes, so
Okay.
ayes for George, Barbara, Sarah, yourself, nays for myself and Betsy.
Okay.
Well, Angus is not here, so.
Yes,
he's
Angus
not
is
here.
Okay, and I also would stress, I think we're all in agreement that we would love to see more public outreach. Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, I mean, again, we're advisory and it's up to town leadership to make that ultimate.
Yes,
call.
of course, yeah, so
They are very much looking to you to weigh in on this, because they know your viewpoints on this are respected.
oh, thank you.
As I am, this has been all very helpful for me.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. Thank you, Jane. Also, thank you, Lauren. I think we lost James, but also thank you to him as well. Well, we look forward to seeing how this develops.
So I'm sure I'll be back for this. See you then. Not great. I have to run now. Like the two.
All right, thank you
so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep,
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so next on our agenda, as a follow-up to the discussion that we had last month, about wanting to be more proactive about properties that we see in distress, what referrals we should be making for demolition by neglect citation. Do we want to begin making a list?
No, we had a list. We started a list a while ago. I want to say this time last year.
I don't think we ever got a, well, did we have a formal?
Oh, we did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we had, it was shortly after I came on the board. I'm saying that we did.
I think we talked about it,
No,
but I don't think we ever,
talked about it.
I
yeah.
don't think we did
Okay.
it formally.
Mm-mm.
No, I don't think we do. And that was coming out of the citations being issued for Penguin Wheel Street and for the wood box at the time. Last fall, when the simplified neglect, violations went out. But we didn't, I don't remember having all of
So
George?
should we propose having an actual list?
us. In terms of, so, okay, it's now 11:37. In the interest of the other items on our agenda, is this something we want to push off until January and we can?
Yeah, I would, Rita, I'd say if we already, like, maybe what we should do is if we already have a list floating next somewhere, that we bring it in January and see where there are gaps and things we need to add to. That would be my
Yes,
advice.
have that, yeah, part of the packet.
Right. Because I agree with Sarah that I feel like there's something out there, and I think we should just have that in the packet and then be like, what's missing?
Yes,
Mhm.
thanks. And also maybe Holly, we could talk to Kathy and figure out what demo by neglect, what notices she sent maybe within the last.
For demo and by neglect,
Yeah, within the time that she's returned to
Mm-hmm.
working at Plus. That would be helpful to know.
and she
also.
copies me on everything, so
Okay.
I'll have to look.
Okay,
Sounds good. Does the HDC actually maintain a list? Do you know?
Well, I mean, yes and no. It's not necessarily a list.
Mhm.
We have, for instance, when there's a letter that's sent out, myself and the chair are copied on the letter.
Mhm.
I personally drag and drop them and save them,
Mhm.
and keep an eye out on the ones that are in the OHD. But as far as like a spreadsheet or anything like that, not necessarily, no. As far as I know, I mean, unless that's something she's keeping track of, but there's no list. And I think this goes back to what I mentioned before about our survey efforts.
Mhm.
This is something that architectural historians will do and say, okay, like fish lots. Pal said, all right, what are the two most endangered structures in this neighborhood? And at the time, it was Woodbox and 6, I think, Fair Street, that little bungalow. Look at them now. I mean, so it does help addressing that. But doing this as a evolving aspect, again, it's about time. And I think we brought this up at the CLG meeting when both commissions were together. It's time. We don't have a lot of staff. And quite frankly, that's something that, I think every single department in this town have mentioned staff and room is what's really missing for us to be able to do things we really need to do as we grow to a size that's a little more than a town. So, but yes, we can work on something for
okay,
that.
so we'll put something together for January. Great. So our next on the agenda, historic resource surveys update with our wind fund RFQ response. Last week we talked about Chronicle Heritage / Paleo West. They have done work.
Yes.
We, the list that our list of town-owned resources that we provided to them was, slightly more than the 30, Massachusetts form Bs or As or Cs or, that number of forms. So we removed, so essentially we had to make 3 changes to get it down to a number of 30 form Bs. So we removed the Loran forms out on the Leaford and Scottford because that was Holly's suggestion and the two of us and Angus discussed it, sort of feeling like the history of those properties is well understood at this point, so less of a priority. And then we consolidated.
Yes. So basically with the list, it was our old format, our windshield survey format. We had this thing where HDC would do surveys for everything, right? So you have a form for this building, this building, this building, regardless if they were all on the same parcel. MHC's methodology is it's one form, but you identify those structures. So with these older ones, if they're in Macris, they're going to be combined into one form. So, sorry, this is it, but in the Excel spreadsheet I provided to the consultant, I indicated, okay, that's all one property, that's all one property, that's all one property. So it's clear. I even went so far as to identify the map and parcel, identify what I would think type of form it would be, whether it's going to be a Form A, Form B, Form C, what have you. Again, they're also the professionals that have done stuff in Massachusetts. I would hope that they would also give us that recommendation of what they think it would be. We also took off the Old Norse cemeteries. There are actually two forms right now because, you know, of course, it's new lane, so they flank on either side. There's a form for each one of them already in Old Macris. That's something that has also been documented with the Cemetery Commission when they did their review of a lot of the cemeteries a couple of years ago, which was, I think it was Richard Grubb and Ellis, or I think it was the company, I can't remember exactly, the archaeological folks that did that work. So thought that was one to take off the list, to bring it down to the 30. As of actually a couple of days ago, I think it was the 4th originally, they had reached out about Cliff Road and the pump station and the old water tower that was there. It was redone in the 90s, but the building that's there, both of those have forms. So one, we want to update that form with a continuation form, because if you go into Macris, some of these, I mean, I can pull up a form and go, oh, I know it's not there anymore, but it still says it's there. It's not demolished, right? So we want to, through this effort, clean that up when we have the opportunity to do that. So one, it would be to do a continuation sheet for the water tower, but two, the little structure that was there that actually has a form right now was moved to the current location that it's there now. And this would be an opportunity for maybe taking that form and turning it into a Form A about the history of the Wannacomet Water Company at Washington Pond. That was my recommendation. So that was as of actually this morning, I was able to get back to her. I don't know if she's responded back, but so there's some moving parts and pieces. I don't know yet on when their schedule is from coming to the island, but of course, once I find out, I'll let the commission know.
So that's progressing nicely.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. And then for the fiscal year 2023 Massachusetts Historical Commission funding.
Yes, so
RFQ.
this is the RFQ. It's not 100% yet. As of Monday, I received edits back from the state. Remember that ping pong ball I've explained about? I'm dealing with that with procurement. As of right before I came over here for this meeting, I did receive an email from procurement giving me edits. Her and I are actually going to have a meeting this afternoon because I explained time is of the essence. We need to get this posted because the state wants us to get going. So we have the time next year to do it. Because at the end of the day, the state has already given us extensions twice. We want to be able to get a consultant moving forward on this. One new update on this since Monday from Michael at MHC is that originally, remember how was 140 survey forms, then they allowed us to go down to 120. And as of Monday, we're down to 110, which is good because what that does is give more monetary value for a form. I think that's helpful.
Making it more attractive to consultants.
Yes, absolutely. I think that was helpful because at the end of the day, for the last couple of years, I've been trying to stress to the state that Nantucket factor is very important. So I hope to I will probably be working on this actually when I'm home for holiday break. So there's that.
Great. And then for fiscal year 2026, Massachusetts Historical Commission Survey Planning Grant, we had submitted our pre-approval letter and we were approved to move forward to the full application stage.
Yes. So I received a letter this past week, I think it was, on the 11th. So we will be able to move forward with the preservation plan. And I've already reached out to Michael to ask him because he wants to actually have meetings with us before we even submit the application, which is due in February. So I actually reached out and asked him in the beginning of January if I can set a time with him. Really, really important because I don't know if you all have seen it, but the Massachusetts Historical Commission has their own preservation plan, which is something that they update every few years. The last one I want to say only went to 2022. When Jen Doherty, the former CLG coordinator, was there at the state, she was working on the update, so I don't know where it stands now, but this is the draft that's on their website for 2023 through 2031. My point is usually you mimic at the local level what the state level has. Of course, there's going to be some things that wouldn't make sense, but that's pretty much the justification of it. But this is going to be a great opportunity to kind of take the preservation program on Nantucket from a municipal perspective and really expand upon it and really identify things that we should be doing. And talking to Jen Doherty, who now works for Barrett Planning, who's been working on our master plan and did all the historical and cultural aspects of chapter, I think chapter 5 of the master plan update. This is the perfect time. So I haven't reached out to her to let her know that we got this good news that we can move forward with it, but this is really good. So very exciting. Very exciting.
Okay, next on the agenda was a Civil War monument repair. Again, wanting to continue our discussion on what we can do to avoid something like this in the future. So
I do have an update. As of this morning, Drew did reach out back to me. I basically asked him at the end of the day, if the old stone had been returned to the town and if he knew the status of the insurance claim. He said that yes, that they do have the original granite stone that's been returned to DPW. He says he believes the insurance claim has been closed. So I would have to confirm with, I guess, maybe finance. I'm not too sure on that. And of course, I want to say that whoever handles the insurance aspect would be the one that we would have to communicate with, find out the ins and outs of how that works. I really don't know, but I may be able to bring that up to my procurement meeting this afternoon and say, hey, can you give me any guidance on this? If she knows, if not,
yeah,
then
that'd be helpful just again, so we can have more local control over.
yes. Well, and again, I think that's why I kind of go back to our survey efforts for our town-owned resources. This is important and to identify to town leadership. These are our historic assets. These aren't just buildings or these aren't just monuments that are sitting. They have an actual tangible meaning to them. And I think people realize that, but having it documented, I think, is even more helpful. So, anyway.
Okay. Upcoming training opportunities with the holidays. I don't know. I haven't noticed anything coming.
I haven't either.
Great. And then so commission goals. Abby, are you able to share your screen?
I have it this time.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Yeah, because I know last month I had technical issues, but I have resolved my issues and I have it, and I was just updating it right now. So let me share. Here we go. I'm just fiddling to get these guys in place. The grant, we're still, Holly, as you mentioned, you're finalizing the stuff for the RFQ, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so that is ongoing.
Ongoing.
A couple of these, I have the date, I put the date as 5/31 just because these are things that are going to go on the warrant for May.
Perfect.
And so, as we know, the 2 pin projects have been added to the ATM warrant. The Main Street project was added to the ATM warrant, and then the updating the Nantucket building with Nantucket in mind. So just so people are aware, those are all on the warrant for May. So those items covers the first 3 lines. The sewer force main, Holly, the last thing we had is you had said the Winter Street was complete. That was the David Gray update. I don't know.
I don't have an update.
Yeah, I don't know if with is this something we could maybe take off of this chart?
I was gonna
I
say-
think so. I think so because really and truly everything else was under that review for section 106 that we did for the sewer force main, and that was the add-on that was done. Everything else is per the plans. I don't
Yeah.
really see anything else coming back to us unless there's any issues. But I do say that we'll mention to the commission that David is really good about updating me if anything, if they find anything and all that kind of stuff. So
Gotcha. So
yeah,
thank you for telling us that. That's
Mhm.
good. We got one last thing. Section 106 review, we don't have any new ones. This just shows us complete for last month because I think everyone knows we just did the one with the Coast Guard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same thing like with historic tax credit. We don't have any new ones. I did leave on the CLG. We had talked about meeting this winter sometime in person, so I'm being optimistic and leaving it until March. But I'm hoping maybe in January or February, it'd be great for us to have another CLG meeting. Holly, if
Great.
we could get it
Yep.
done.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna leave that on here.
Okay.
Education, the only thing this happened, but I wanted to put it on here. I don't know if anybody went. The Recycling Council Material Reuse Forum was on December 2nd. I don't know if anybody attended it, but I do get those emails, so happy to share the documents if anybody's interested. I know we have partnering with Egan Maritime about shipwreck. Maybe that's something we can target for next year. And then the other ongoing is just like our partnerships with the different organizations.
Great. Thank you, Abby. Maybe just under the section 106 segment, just add that we're monitoring or anticipating upcoming reviews for Lover's Lane, the Wawona bike path, and Tom Nevers bike path.
That's it. And
And Tom Nevers won't necessarily, I don't think MIPA is being, maybe it was being, I'm trying to remember. Basically, at the end of the day, if section 106 doesn't get triggered because it's not state or federal funding and it's local, and if MIPA doesn't get triggered, then pretty much whenever Mike comes to us on those particular projects, he's doing it to be generous and he wants to communicate, which is great. So that's good. And I told him that we do appreciate him, having that open line, and he's like, it makes sense to me. So it's really nice to hear. Yeah.
Agreed.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Abby.
yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing with these, another thing I'd mention is just separately, they also do come with up to the Planning and Economic Development Commission, and there's a new transportation, the TPAC Transportation
Oh, yeah.
Committee. So also just kind of letting people know that if this might be something that will like come through that, but I'm happy to kind of keep my eyes on it because we have members who are on the new committee. And when stuff comes up, just so people are aware. Because what happened is it came up, some of the transportation work comes up at our commission, and the question is, well, have they talked with the historic commission? So I'm thinking that if it comes up to our commission, I'd like to ensure if it's been a section 106 review, that maybe somebody from NHC comes and talks about what happened at our
Yeah.
I think that'd be great, like you or anyone else. I just think so people are aware that it came up to the commission here and what we brought up so that it's, like those issues are transmitted to the people who are on the Planning and Economic Development Commission because they may not know.
Right.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Okay, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. And then I included our minutes from last month in the packet, but then I forgot to include it on the agenda, so we'll approve those in January. Sorry about that. Is there any other business? Sarah?
I just want to make a comment. I met a man named Chris Carey yesterday, and I heard about him, and he was explaining more about their new 501c3, which I know you guys at Preservation Trust have been involved in, and Maine. And so I would love to have more information from him that he could present to us so that we're more aware, so that when we're talking to other people, we understand what they're trying to accomplish, and then maybe if there's something that we can do as a, you know, just something to help them grow that, or, you know,
Yeah, and
whatever
if I
that
could
is.
just, yeah,
Exactly.
provide a little bit more.
What's,
context.
what's his name? I just want to make
So
sure.
Chris Carey.
Yeah, Carey. And he is a builder here with a, you know, general contracting company, but has now started a nonprofit for deconstruction instead of demolition.
Yep. And so I met him because they had a project and the architect they worked with the homeowner, and the homeowner was able to get a tax write-off for all of the contents of the house that's going to be gutted. And so it was a very substantial tax write-off for the owner, and now they're selling the contents, and then as they take things out, they'll probably continue to sell them, so obviously everything stays out of the landfill. And hopefully mostly stays on the island. And so I know that they partnered with some people off island as well, and we didn't have a whole lot of time to talk about it, but it was very interesting from the standpoint of, you know, being here and seeing a builder and an architect work with a homeowner to be able to do that on a scale that seems like it's effective. So with one builder, I know that he met with the Builders Association to talk to them about how they could do that. It would be interesting to see what the buy-in was, because I know that there was a presentation, I want to say it was at maybe one of the resilience things maybe a year and a half ago. And Frank Daly was there as the head of the Builders Association, and he was, I don't think, quite as receptive in terms of what the general consensus of builders on the island would be to have sort of like a deconstruction type, you know, mandate of sorts. So it would be interesting to see how they've decided to sort of go forward with that, and you know, I just found it, we should know about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Does the organization have a name?
it does, and I think it's Deconstruction Nantucket or something like that. I pulled up let's see.
Nantucket deconstruction.
Yeah, Nantucket Deconstruction and Salvage. And they just received their final FCC.
Thank you. We'll reach out and see if he wants to come sometime in the next few months. That would be great. All right, any other business? There a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Second.
One second.
All right, so motion to adjourn made by
Yeah.
Betsy, seconded by Sarah.
Thank you.
Betsy on your motion?
Yeah.
Sarah?
Right.
Barbara?
Aye.
George?
Right.
Abby?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Happy holidays if I don't see you.
Happy holidays.